Welcome to Stow Therapy, where Stoic wisdom meets modern self-mastery. If you're ready to free your mind and take control of your life, let's begin. Anger and revenge, a Stoic perspective. The role of anger and revenge in human psychology. Anger, that scorching, burning energy you feel inside. The poison coursing through your veins, making you believe, if only for a moment, that you are stronger. But is it truly your ally? Or is it an enemy that takes control, alienating you from yourself? When anger strikes, reason flees, your heart races, the world shrinks before your eyes, and only one thing remains, the urge to react. And here lies the most critical question. Is this reaction truly yours, or is it just a reflex, a remnant of a primitive instinct dragging you along? Revenge. Is it simply anger stretched over time, or is it a far deeper, far more sinister illusion? At first, it appears as a pursuit of justice, as if everything will fall into place, as if balance will be restored. But is that really the case? Does a person who exacts revenge feel fulfilled, or does it merely carve a greater void within them? Perhaps our greatest misconception is believing that anger and revenge are natural rights. But what if they are not? What if these emotions are simply remnants of a primitive legacy passed down to us through time? The evolutionary and biological origins of anger and revenge. That fire you feel inside is not just your story. It is one of the oldest emotions of humankind. Anger helped our ancestors survive. When faced with a predator, when their tribe was threatened, or when a rival emerged, anger took over. In those times, this emotion was a necessity for survival. Fight or flee. Deep within your brain lies a small structure called the amygdala. When anger flares up, this is where it all begins. Your body goes into high alert. Stress hormones flood your system. Your heartbeat quickens and your muscles tense. Your brain sends a single message: threat detected, destroy. This is why rational thinking becomes difficult in moments of anger, because your brain is singularly focused on eliminating the perceived enemy. And what about revenge? Was it also a survival mechanism? Yes. Early humans used revenge as a deterrent. If someone betrayed or harmed them, they had to be punished. Otherwise, chaos would erupt within the tribe. But here lies the critical question. How relevant is this instinct in today's world? For our ancestors, revenge was a means of maintaining order. But now we have laws, morality, and societal structures. So in modern times, what is it that a person seeking revenge is truly after? The individual and societal effects of anger and revenge in today's world. You are no longer wielding a spear to defeat your enemies, but your anger remains the same. When someone insults you or treats you unfairly, your primal mechanism kicks in immediately. In the age of social media, entire lives can be destroyed with a single tweet. But is this true justice or just a modernized form of revenge? On an individual level, anger can be destructive. It ruins relationships, clouds judgment, and a single moment of rage can lead to lifelong regrets. But it also has societal consequences: civil unrest, wars, political turmoil, economic crises. History is full of catastrophic events fueled by outbursts of collective anger, demonstrating just how dangerous this force can be. Revenge operates in the same way. A personal matter of vengeance can escalate into generational blood feuds. Many states throughout history have acted on collective revenge, leading to devastating consequences. Wars have been waged solely to avenge past injustices. But has that ever truly been a solution? Today, revenge persists in more subtle forms in our personal lives. When someone harms us, we seek to overpower them. When someone belittles us, we strive to prove our superiority. But is this a real solution, or just another chain we bind ourselves with? A fundamental Stoic question: is revenge always fueled by anger? The Stoics believed that anger and revenge are two emotions that enslave us. Seneca once said, "Anger is a brief madness, warning us about the illusion that takes control. When you succumb to anger, you become a slave to your emotions." But what about revenge? Is it always fueled by anger? Can a calculated, cold-blooded act of revenge truly be separate from anger? If you are meticulously planning to punish someone, aren't you just hiding your anger more effectively? Marcus Aurelius said, "The wrongdoings of others should not corrupt your own character." If someone has harmed you, is becoming like them really the solution? Or is rising above them the greater victory? The Stoics believed that true strength lies in how we respond to events. If anger controls you, you are weak. True power is the ability to remain calm even in the face of provocation. So ask yourself, does revenge make you feel powerful? Or does the ability to let go of revenge make you even stronger? If true freedom is what you seek, is victory found in abandoning revenge or in executing it? This is where you must question the true nature of anger and revenge. Are you truly a slave to these emotions, or can you master them like a sage? Is anger always dangerous? Anger. Sometimes it comes like a storm, sweeping away everything in its path. Other times it burns slowly, deep inside, like a hidden fire. But it always raises the same question: is anger truly dangerous? Or does it depend on how you use it? The Stoic perspective: anger is irrational and enslaves us. From a Stoic standpoint, anger is an illusion that clouds reason. Seneca once said, "Anger is a temporary madness. That is, when left unchecked, anger leads us to irrational actions." Think about the decisions you've made in anger. How many of them truly moved you forward? The biggest problem with anger is that when it takes control, you forget who you are. The moment you allow someone else to provoke you, you lose control. You become nothing more than a puppet reacting to others' actions. And can a puppet ever be truly free? Marcus Aurelius said, "To be driven to anger by others' mistakes is to make a second mistake." In other words, if someone wrongs you and you respond with wrongdoing, you allow them to shape you in their image. The psychological perspective: is anger always bad, or can it be a source of strength when directed properly? Throughout history, anger has been as much a force for destruction as it has been for progress. Those who mastered their anger were the ones who changed the world. Nelson Mandela transformed his anger at injustice into a fight for freedom rather than violence. Martin Luther King Jr. channeled his anger at discrimination into peaceful resistance instead of hatred. Mahatma Gandhi turned his people's anger over oppression into non-violent resistance rather than retaliation. And what about you? Will you allow your anger to be a chain that drags you down, or will you turn it into an energy that propels you forward? Uncontrolled anger is your greatest enemy, but when directed wisely, it can become a force for change. The key question is, are you controlling your anger, or is your anger controlling you? The two faces of anger: the dangers of uncontrolled rage versus the power of constructive anger. Imagine a knife. You can use it to harm someone, or you can use it to build something. Anger works the same way. Whether it destroys you or strengthens you, depends on how you wield it. The dangers of uncontrolled anger: prevents rational thinking, leads to poor decision-making, harms both physical and mental health, damages relationships and isolates individuals, becomes a personal prison, trapping you in a cycle of frustration. The power of constructive anger. When directed properly, it can be a force for justice, can serve as a powerful source of motivation, helps establish boundaries and self-defense mechanisms, becomes a catalyst for transformation and positive change. Anger is like fire. If handled with care, it warms you and lights your way. But if left uncontrolled, it will burn everything to the ground. So ask yourself, am I controlling my anger, or is it controlling me? Anger in Stoic philosophy. Why is it considered dangerous? Anger. Sometimes it feels like a pursuit of justice, sometimes like a flame rising within us. But for the Stoics, this emotion is seen as one of the greatest weaknesses. Why is that? Why is anger not just considered an emotion, but also a danger? Seneca. Anger is a temporary madness. Seneca describes anger as a disease that overrides reason and logic. When he says, anger is a temporary madness, he means that when you are angry, you are no longer yourself. Logic disappears, and your most primitive instincts take control. In Seneca's view, anger is the most dangerous form of self-righteousness. When you are angry, you believe you are making the right decision, but in reality, you have lost your mind. According to him, no decision made in anger is ever truly sound. This emotion drags a person to a point where they can no longer recognize themselves. If you surrender to anger, if you let it guide you, you are actually losing control over yourself. So, is true strength found in giving in to anger, or in restraining it? Marcus Aurelius's thoughts on anger. Marcus Aurelius saw anger as one of the greatest traps a person could fall into. In his book, Meditations, he discusses ways to resist anger. According to him, people may provoke you, try to harm you, or treat you unfairly. But will you be the one truly harmed, or will you only be falling into the anger they have inflicted upon you? He says, instead of getting angry, ask yourself, why did this person act this way? Try to understand their perspective. Once you grasp human nature, you will pity their actions rather than be angered by them. This is a cornerstone of Stoic thought. To be angered by others' actions is to surrender your mind to them. But must you truly allow yourself to be consumed by this emotion just because someone mistreated you? The idea that anger is an irrational reaction that ultimately harms the self. At first glance, anger may seem directed outward, but in reality it inflicts the greatest harm on the individual themselves. A decision made without thinking, an action taken in a moment of fury, can alter the course of one's life. Words spoken in anger can lead to irreversible loss. For the Stoics, anger is like poisoning one's own soul. Is it worth burning yourself just to harm an enemy? If someone provokes you and you react with anger, that person is actually controlling you. This is why the Stoics always ask a fundamental question before giving into anger. Is this truly worth it? In a few years, will you even remember this incident? Is it worth exhausting yourself over something so fleeting? True strength lies in mastering your emotions. If you let anger take over, you become its slave. But if you learn to manage it, that is when you achieve true freedom. The illusion of revenge. Justice or a vicious cycle? Revenge. At first it feels sweet, as if justice has been served, as if you have regained your power. But in reality, Is there ever a true winner? Revenge does not change the past. It does not erase what has happened. It only pulls you deeper into a downward spiral. So why do people still pursue it? Why does revenge seem appealing in human nature? Your brain has a reward system. When you accomplish something, dopamine is released. And revenge, at a subconscious level, is perceived as an achievement. You believe you are restoring justice, correcting a wrong. But this is an illusion. In reality, taking revenge does not solve the problem. It only creates new ones. In early tribal societies, revenge was a necessity for survival. If someone harmed a member of your tribe, you had to retaliate. Otherwise, you would appear weak and be targeted more in the future. Today, in the modern world, the urge for revenge still exists within us. But does it still serve the same purpose? Perhaps the real question we should ask is this: do we truly want revenge, or do we just want our pain to be acknowledged? Is it more important to harm someone in return, or to seek justice in a way that does not create further destruction? The psychological effects of revenge, creating a greater void instead of satisfaction. Revenge provides a brief sense of satisfaction the moment it is carried out. But what happens afterward? What remains? Peace, or an even greater emptiness? Because revenge is not an ending, it is a beginning. It perpetuates conflict. When you inflict harm, the other side will want to retaliate. And thus, a cycle begins. You become trapped in your anger. You think you are freeing yourself, but in reality, you are chaining yourself even further. Research shows that people who take revenge often do not experience the satisfaction they anticipated. This is because the mind does not distinguish between justice and destruction. You believe you are restoring balance, but in reality, you are consuming yourself. Remember the words of Marcus Aurelius: to be driven to anger by others' mistakes is to make a second mistake. Revenge only pulls you deeper into wrongdoing, and in the end, the greatest loser is you. Epictetus: it is not events that disturb us, but the meaning we attach to them. Epictetus's words summarize the greatest illusion of revenge. The source of anger and the desire for retaliation is not the external event itself, but the meaning you assign to it. When someone harms you, how do you interpret it? Do you see it as a lesson or as an opportunity for payback? If you choose to see it differently, revenge becomes unnecessary. True freedom is not in taking revenge, but in not needing it. When you chase revenge, you remain chained to the past. But if you accept what has happened for what it is, you begin to live not for the past, but for the future. So ask yourself, will revenge truly set you free? Or will it bind you even more? If real strength lies in mastering your emotions, will you let anger dictate your path? Does the one who seeks revenge actually harm themselves? From the outside, revenge may appear as a victory, an act that reinforces your belief in justice, a move that makes you feel powerful. But the real question is this: are you truly the winner? Or, without realizing it, are you the one suffering the greatest loss? Because revenge, though it seems outwardly directed, delivers its deepest blow from within. Psychological damage, the endless feeding of anger, the feeling of emptiness, and the loss of identity. At first, taking revenge may seem like a way to silence your anger. But then what? Does true satisfaction ever come? Or does it leave behind an even greater void? Psychological research shows that those who take revenge often do not experience the relief they expect. Instead, continually feeding anger wears down one's mental health. taking revenge does not allow you to move on from the past. On the contrary, it binds you to it. The more you hold on to anger, the more you lose yourself. At some point, you stop being an individual and become merely an agent of vengeance. And the tragic part? Satisfaction never arrives. No matter how much revenge you take, you cannot change the past. The wounds have already been inflicted. You are simply adding new ones. The emptiness within does not disappear, it deepens. Biological damage, the effects of revenge on stress, the immune system, and brain chemistry. You may think of revenge as just an emotion, but in reality, it leaves significant physiological damage on your body. When you feel the urge for revenge, your brain activates stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. In the short term, these keep you alert, but in the long term, they start harming your body. Your heart rate increases, your blood pressure rises, and your immune system weakens. Living under constant anger and stress does not just affect you mentally, it physically deteriorates you as well. Someone consumed by revenge unknowingly turns their own body into a battlefield. The brain, trapped in a constant state of threat perception, puts long-term revenge seekers at higher risk for heart disease, immune disorders, and even depression. So is it truly worth it? Is it worth sacrificing your own health just to settle a score with someone who hurt you? Social damage, creating new enemies, wasting time and energy, and facing legal consequences. One of the biggest traps of revenge is isolation, because revenge often does not stop at just one act. It triggers a chain reaction. If you harm someone, they will want to harm you back. Over time, your enemies multiply. Eventually, you may not even remember how the conflict originally began. Moreover, revenge is a black hole that consumes time and energy. Spending your days and nights thinking about harming another person prevents you from progressing in your own life. Yet, the greatest revenge is not needing revenge at all. It is building a life so fulfilling that you leave the past behind. And of course, revenge has legal consequences. Many acts committed in the name of vengeance can turn the avenger into the guilty party. Would you let an emotional decision ruin the rest of your life? Anger is temporary, but the consequences it creates can be permanent. Managing anger. Stoic approaches. Anger, when left unchecked, is like a storm that can sweep a person away. However, the Stoics believed that anger is not inevitable. It can be managed and controlled. So, how can one rein in their anger? What techniques can you use to prevent anger from taking control of you? Recognizing and managing emotions. The first step in managing anger is acknowledging its presence, because you cannot control something you refuse to recognize. The Stoics taught that anger is a feeling that arises within us, and it belongs entirely to us. It is not the event itself that makes us angry, but the meaning we assign to it. Seneca said, "What feeds anger is the reaction we give to it. The one who learns to recognize and restrain it is truly strong." But how? Here are some Stoic techniques. Pause and wait. Do not react immediately. Take a few deep breaths and remind yourself that anger is a temporary emotion. Observe your thoughts. Before getting angry, question why you feel this way. Does the situation really deserve such a strong reaction? Create mental distance. Try to look at the situation as an outsider. If a friend came to you with the same problem, what advice would you give them? Use that same perspective for yourself. Distinguishing between external and internal factors. What we can and cannot control. One of the most fundamental Stoic principles is distinguishing between what is within your control and what is not. Most of the time, people get angry over things they cannot change. Epictetus's core teaching is, being angry at things beyond your control is like trying to stop the wind. You waste your strength and energy for nothing. So, what mindset should you adopt? What you can control, your thoughts, actions and reactions, these belong entirely to you and you can change them. What you cannot control, the words, actions and decisions of others, as well as external events. You cannot change these, but you can choose how you respond to them. Before reacting with anger, ask yourself, can I control this situation? If not, why waste your energy on it? The practice of observing your own thoughts. One of the most powerful Stoic tools is the practice of self-observation. Anger, like a habit, takes root in the mind. But when this habit is recognized and observed, it loses its power. Marcus Aurelius suggested a technique. When anger arises, observe it as if it were a stranger. Notice what it does to you. Separate it from your thoughts and evaluate it from an external perspective. If you make this a habit, you will start to see that anger is temporary and it doesn't have to control you. Because true freedom comes from mastering your own mind. The Stoic approach to anger management teaches that anger should not be your master, it should be your servant. If you can control it, you attain real strength. If you surrender to it, you become a slave to your emotions. Master your anger, and you master yourself. What to do instead of revenge? Stoic alternatives. Revenge may be one of the most powerful instincts in human nature, but is it truly the best option? The Stoics viewed anger and the desire for vengeance as things within a person's control. True strength lies not in being enslaved by emotions, but in redirecting them toward a higher purpose. So, what should one do instead of seeking revenge? The Stoics advocate for conscious indifference and a constructive approach rather than anger and hatred. The Stoic meaning of forgiveness and indifference. From a Stoic perspective, forgiveness is not an emotional act of mercy, but rather a way to liberate one's own mind. Forgiving is not a gift to the other person, it is a gift to yourself. Because if you do not forgive, you remain imprisoned by anger, resentment, and the endless thirst for revenge. Epictetus said, "Who is stronger, the one who does harm or the one who remains indifferent to it?" When someone harms you, forgiving them prevents their actions from defining you. For the Stoics, forgiveness is not about letting the other person off the hook, but about freeing yourself from their influence. When anger no longer controls you, your life becomes more peaceful, more liberated. The greatest weapon against revenge is indifference. The Stoics championed the concept of apatheia, the idea of not becoming emotionally attached to external events. If someone wrongs you, that is their burden. Your only responsibility is to maintain your own inner peace, because revenge is simply allowing others to control you, transforming anger and the desire for revenge into a constructive force. Anger, when misdirected, can be destructive, but when consciously controlled, it can become an extraordinary source of motivation. Instead of trying to eliminate anger, you can redirect it. The Stoics suggest handling anger with reason. Here are some techniques. Turn anger into opportunity. Instead of retaliating against someone who has wronged you, focus on improving your own life. The greatest revenge is not vengeance. It is living a successful and peaceful life. Reshape your perspective. When something angers you, ask yourself, is this really as devastating as I perceive it to be? Or is it only important because of the meaning I'm assigning to it? Convert anger into action. If an injustice troubles you, use it as fuel for positive change. Many social movements that transformed the world were born from anger, but only when that anger was properly controlled and directed. Marcus Aurelius on understanding the mistakes of others. In his work Meditations, Marcus Aurelius teaches that people's mistakes arise from their nature, which is why becoming angry at them is irrational. He writes, "If a person acts wrongly due to ignorance, what sense is there in being angry at them? If someone with poor eyesight cannot see well, do you become enraged at them? Then why be angry when people act out of moral blindness?" This perspective is built on accepting the imperfections of human nature. When someone harms you, it is a reflection of their moral weakness, not your failure. So, rather than seeing them as an enemy, isn't it more reasonable to recognize their flaw and move on? The Stoics suggest that instead of becoming enraged at the actions of others, you should seek to understand them. Because true wisdom is not about controlling others' actions, but about choosing how you respond to them. True strength is having no need for revenge. Taking revenge may make you feel powerful, but true strength lies in reaching a point where revenge is unnecessary. When you learn how to redirect your anger and resentment, you no longer allow others to control you. Instead, you choose your own spiritual freedom. So, what path will you choose? Will you pursue revenge, or will you free yourself from its grip? True strength, mastering anger and attaining wisdom. True strength is not about defeating others, nor is it about surrendering to anger. True strength lies in controlling your inner world. Because while you cannot always change the external world, you can change how you respond to it. According to the Stoics, the greatest victory a person can achieve is not succumbing to provocation and learning to govern their emotions. The Stoic concept of strength: controlling ourselves, not the world. For the Stoics, true power does not come from controlling the outside world, but from mastering your own mind. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus all emphasized that external circumstances do not determine true happiness. Life is not always fair, and most things are beyond our control. However, our reaction to them is entirely within our power. Epictetus once said, "Happiness depends not on how things happen, but on how we react to them." A person who allows themselves to be shaped by external events or the actions of others has lost control over themselves. But a person who can govern their mind can maintain an unshakable inner peace, even in the most difficult situations. True freedom. Not being a slave to our emotions. Are you truly free? Freedom is not just a physical condition. It is also a mental state. If your emotions dictate your actions, can you really say you are free? According to the Stoics, true freedom means not being a prisoner to your emotions. Marcus Aurelius said, "Let external events not corrupt your soul. The one who masters himself is free in all circumstances." Anger is a natural part of human nature, but when you allow it to control you, you lose yourself. If anger dominates you, it is no longer you who is in control, it is the outside world. True freedom is not defined by how others treat you, but by how you shape yourself. Managing anger in the modern world and overcoming the culture of revenge. Today, anger is constantly being fueled in social media, in the news, and in our daily interactions. People are obsessed with being right. Arguments turn into wars of provocation, and the desire for revenge is more prevalent than ever in the digital age. So, how can we manage anger? The Stoics offer several techniques. Recognize your emotions. Do not suppress anger, but learn to redirect it. The first step to controlling anger is acknowledging that you feel it. Analyze the source of your anger. What is truly making you angry? Is it the actions of the other person or the meaning you're assigning to them? Create mental distance. When something makes you furious, ask yourself, will this matter to me in 5 years? The strong have no need for revenge. The truly powerful person does not succumb to anger and revenge. Real strength lies in self-mastery. The greatest victory. Winning the battle. Within anger does not have to control you, but if you can control it, that is when you attain true freedom. Because in the end, the greatest victory is not over others. It is over the chaos within yourself. Do anger and revenge have a place in a Stoic life? Anger and revenge may seem like inseparable parts of human nature, but for the Stoics, these emotions are merely aspects of the mind that can be controlled and managed. A truly strong person is one who is not enslaved by their anger or desire for revenge. But how do the Stoics guide us in this regard? Practical lessons for our own lives. Stoic philosophy is not just theoretical. It offers practical lessons for daily life. Understanding how anger and revenge affect us allows us to make more balanced decisions in our own lives. When an event makes you angry, pause and ask yourself, will this truly matter in the long run? When someone wrongs you, before seeking revenge, reflect, is this person truly worth my energy? Do not let the external world control you. Do not allow the actions of others to disrupt your inner peace. The long-term consequences of anger and revenge from a Stoic perspective. Anger and revenge may seem satisfying in the short term. However, the Stoics teach us to look at how these emotions enslave us in the long run. Anger makes us lose control. Revenge binds our mind to the past. Marcus Aurelius's wisdom applies here. Let external events not corrupt your soul. If you can maintain your inner balance, nothing can shake you. A moment of anger can lead to years of regret. A fleeting desire for revenge can slowly transform you into something you never intended to become. True wisdom is not letting your future be imprisoned by the mistakes of the past. True victory, seeking revenge or not needing it. The greatest victory is not in destroying your opponent, it is in not needing them anymore. Revenge does not set you free, but the absence of the need for revenge is proof that you are truly free. Seneca put it simply, the greatest victory is to not become like your enemy. When asked what true strength is, Stoic philosophers would answer without hesitation, it is the ability to resist anger and the temptation for revenge, to maintain inner peace regardless of circumstances. The ultimate question, do you want to be truly strong? If the answer is yes, then you must learn to channel your anger and let go of revenge as an option. Because a free mind does not chase the past, it moves toward the future. Thus, the real victory is not defeating your enemy, nor retaliating against them. The real victory is knowing you no longer need them.